What's up, Lore Masters? After reviewing the episodes themselves, I felt it would be worth discussing the overall impact and effect of Voyager's Year of Hell Part 1 and Part 2. In the last two videos, I effectively broke down the lore and discussed different aspects of the writing, story, and characters. That said, I generally stayed away from critiquing it from an out-of-universe perspective as to not muddy the waters. So let's go ahead and take a look at it from that point of view. The fact is, the writers honestly did not have enough time to really do Year of Hell any form of justice. Like at all. I had some fun with that in my breakdown, but they had to pack so much into 2 hours that lots of things were either condensed, glossed over, or broke continuity. From a strictly objective standpoint, these two episodes should fail. However, I think the reason a lot of people enjoy Year of Hell is because of what it represents, or what it could have represented. What we got was more of a taste, a toe in the water, for a show that never materialized. Now that doesn't mean that it wasn't actually good from a subjective standpoint. While the two episodes shouldn't do well, they actually are very entertaining. They are worth a watch, so definitely take a look at them if you haven't. It's just a testament to the idea that when you consider these episodes share a lot with other episodes that are considered failures in Voyager's run. From a Nielsen's ratings standpoint, the episodes were, in my opinion, fairly successful for the franchise. Year of Hell Part 1 had a rating of 4.7 with 6.4 million viewers. We can surmise that Part 1 was so well received because we see that Year of Hell Part 2 had a rating of 5.2 and 8 million people watched that time. It showed that Part 1 actually brought in new viewers. Of course, Year of Hell Part 2 was probably pretty disappointing, largely due to the reset, as the episode after that, Random Things, only pulled in 6.8 million viewers and had a Nielsen rating of 4.4. But enough about the statistics. When we look at the overall body of work for Year of Hell, the story has a large amount of plot holes. But that's actually understandable, as I've alluded to, when we consider that what was originally planned was massive. It would have taken anywhere from 3 to 5 episodes to get the basics out of the way and an entire season to really flesh out this grand scope. Let's break that down. According to Lore Runner, who's basically Memory Alpha on YouTube, except he has less errors. Anyway, according to him, he identified an interview with those who were a part of Voyager during the time, and they discuss how the entire idea was going to be a season with no reset button. In fact, this arc had been set up in previous episodes with Kes, as others have talked about. If it had been done as conceived, I think it could have been something great. It would have been different, something we never saw for Star Trek before. They would have probably even one-upped the Dominion War. It would have been Star Trek Enterprise's adventures in the Expanse, but possibly a lot more win than what they did in that series. However, this idea was scrapped, and I don't know that I can blame the showrunners nor the execs who put the kibosh on it. Star Trek Voyager was bleeding and had very low numbers compared to The Next Generation. Generally, it was the lowest rated series even compared to Deep Space Nine. Additionally, an entire season would mean that Voyager becomes serialized. This was something extremely taboo at the time for most all of television, as it was thought that serialization would mean potential viewers would not be able to easily engage in the season halfway through. And that's not unreasonable. At this time, watching shows online or using Netflix wasn't prevalent. Typically, you had to catch episodes on cable television or not see them at all. It was also during the time of VHS, which was not the best way to watch television. However, if they had done it, I think they would have had to been very, very careful. Some have countered that if you had a Year of Hell in Voyager, you basically would have had something that was a parody of Discovery. Or at least its writing. After all, the writers of Deep Space Nine kept the station largely off the front lines in later seasons of that war, and thus could do more lighthearted filler episodes that weren't all doom and gloom. This did allow the show to keep somewhat of a more upbeat tone, and you could not have done that with Voyager. Not really. Star Trek Discovery definitely has a darker take on Trek, especially during the Mirror Universe episodes. Though to be fair, the Mirror Universe episodes is largely held by many to be some of the best Discovery that they've seen of the entire series. And that's me included. If you remove the blatant attempt to attack anyone who is conservative in that arc, and the unnecessarily grotesque death of people, it's honestly not that bad of a story, and takes a look at Starfleet values versus the Mirror Universe. Well, kind of. Would have been nice if there wasn't a character that could fix everything and everybody loves them on both sides, but I'm getting off track. Voyager would have not been able to have quote-unquote happy filler episodes like we saw in Deep Space Nine, not easily at least. Every episode would have to be, well, hell. However, for all of the flaws I call out on Voyager, I don't think it would have become Discovery. One thing that I sincerely believe Voyager had was the spirit of Trek, and Discovery doesn't. You had writers that were closely connected to Deep Space Nine, The Next Generation, and even the original series. The spirit in which the originals and sequels that were created after was still present within Voyager. It was still there with everyone who was making these episodes. Now, that's not to say there weren't missteps, things that I've called out for as a betrayal of the ideals of Trek, but they hit the mark more than not when it came to understanding what the basis of Star Trek was supposed to be. So I do think that had they attempted Year of Hell, it would have been more focused on what made Trek great, what made Voyager great. But again, I understand why they didn't risk it. Hundreds of jobs were on the line, and if they messed up and they got Voyager canceled, well, I mean, people have families. But let's, for the sake of argument, say that they greenlit the Year of Hell as a season. I've stated and pointed out several flaws within the two-parters, so I think it's only fair to go over how I would have written it. Now, I know this may be old hat, but I have talked about it before in depth when it comes to characters. Generally, the best stories have protagonists with a flaw that are willing to change, and antagonists with flaws that don't change. I've also praised the foils that were Janeway and Anarax, how both want the same things ultimately, one changes and the other doesn't, so we definitely use that. For the purposes of this arc, I would be scrapping the time ship. Everything that happens in universe, and the season doesn't have a reset. However, even without the time ship, the Krenim would still be utilizing temporal weapons that would just blast through Voyager to hell and back for at least 2/3 of the season. Unlike what we see, I would not have Janeway enter into Krenim territory knowingly and then get pissed off that she is told what she can't do. The beginning episode, if I was writing it, would still have the creation of the new navigation system in astrometrics. They would plot a new course and begin their way back home. While traveling, they would meet a Zal ship within Krenim territory that is heavily damaged. They would be unaware that they were in the middle of a war zone. An away team would beam aboard to assist, and during this time, a Krenim warship would drop out of warp. Janeway attempts to communicate with the ship, however, her hails go unanswered, and the Krenim vessel targets the Zal ship. Janeway ultimately is forced to destroy the Krenim warship to save her people. This would begin the Year of Hell with a focus on both Anarax and Janeway. We would have them parody each other for a large part of the season, only to have Janeway realize that to save her crew, she has to let them go, for a time at least, having most of them abandon the ship. By abandoning Voyager in some way, Janeway would outwit Anarax and the crew would come together to finally defeat him. Now, when it comes to breaking down episode by episode, honestly, I haven't gotten that far. This is extremely high level, and perhaps we would need a bit more to be put into it. But I do think it could have been something awesome, as I've stated. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below.